turn overseas for just a moment because we have been continuing to follow very closely the developments at Japanese tech giant Olympus, where CEO Michael Woodford was fired after he challenged more than $600 million in transactions fees that the company made in a recent acquisition. But we want to talk now with an investor in the company. As a portfolio manager at Harris Associates, David Herro manages the $8 billion Oakmark International Fund, which is, by the way, one of the largest holders of Olympus stock. He currently has just under 11 million shares. He's joining us now from Chicago. David, great to have you back here on Bloomberg. You've been a frequent guest lately and appreciate the insight. Let's talk about Olympus and where you stand right now. Part of the reason the stock fell so dramatically is, I think, your inquiry to the board was one that alerted a lot of people to some problems going on at the company.
Yeah, well, of course, it started off with the very competent and very strong CEO and president, Mr. Woodford, being shown the door. Now, it's important to keep in mind that though he's no longer the president and CEO of the company, he's still on the board of directors. And then, of course, the guy who replaced him was asked to step down as well. The guy who replaced him, Mr. Kikakawa, was the one who seems to have provided over all the deals and the high advisory fees. I say seems because this is one of the problems, is the company has not been forthcoming with information. They just keep denying that anything illegal or excessive has happened.
Now, David, you're no stranger to investing in Japan. In fact, your Oakmark Global Select portfolio has a good heavy allocation to Japan, about 19% of the portfolio. Does this give you sort of cause for concern about the rest of the investments, or do you think this is really isolated to Olympus?
Well, this is what we have to be careful not to generalize. I mean, clearly Olympus has a problem, and it has a serious problem with its corporate governance. What we've actually noticed is throughout the rest of corporate Japan is improving corporate governance. It is not perfect. It is hard to find perfect anywhere, in fact. I mean, there's problems in the U.S. still and in the UK. There are problems, I think, around the world in the notion that directors should be working on behalf of the owners of the business. And in the particular case of Olympus, it's terrible. I think the good news is that the Prime Minister came out, you may have seen over the weekend, and interjected himself saying, we must demonstrate that Japan is not a bad place to do business, and we must get this resolved. And again, I think for this to be resolved, we can't have a management team that keeps saying they've done nothing illegal or excessive, because clearly they've done something excessive, and because they've lost credibility there, it begins for us to question whether their first statement is correct.
David, what do you do at this point as a shareholder? Do you wait for the authorities to sort of produce documentation? I mean, there were 3 acquisitions in particular that Michael Woodford, the former CEO, sort of was concerned about. But are you waiting for more details before you do anything at this point with your position?
Well, exactly. What we're waiting for is we called for, and as many of the largest shareholders, Nippon Life has called for, the Tokyo Stock Exchange has called for an independent outside commission to review all these transactions. I mean, the sad fact is that a lot of value was destroyed. The good news for Olympus is it's a decent business outside their poor corporate governance. They're the world leader in endoscopes. You know, they have a camera business, and they have medical microscopic business. They have all kinds of good businesses that are being blighted by poor corporate governance. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that some independent eyes could come in and review exactly what has happened. And when they come up with conclusions, we could decide what to do next then.
You take a look at just about everything. It's a broad spectrum of asset classes that you look at. You look globally, you look at small cap, all the way up to the ultra large caps. Where do you see the biggest value at the moment? Is it Europe, US, Asia? I notice you have no EM, or emerging markets, really, in a lot of your exposure.
Yeah, we should probably start there. You know, 11 years ago, we had over 20% emerging markets. We tend to like them when people don't. In 98, 99, 97, when those emerging world share prices collapsed, we went in and selectively bought what we thought were the best businesses and held on for the better part of a decade. And since then, we've been trimming. We're down to just a couple percent. And that's because on a relative basis, given what's happened in North America and in Europe and in Japan, where share prices, and you could include Australia and New Zealand, where share prices have been hit very, very hard, we've been able to find very good value. So to us, it is not important where a company is domiciled. What is important is where a company makes money. Today's global economy, these businesses, they could be located in Switzerland or in Spain, but their profits come from outside where they're based. And it's an anomaly that just because, for instance, Santander is based in Spain, it gets clobbered. Less than a third of its profits come from there.
David, I'm sorry, we got to end it there. Thanks so much, David Herro of Oak Market.